Hello, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the East and West Learning Club. My name is Yang Wang. I'm the organizer of the club. We're a nonprofit cultural group based in Toronto who strive to promote the communication among people of different heritages and to learn both Eastern and Western cultures. Tonight, we're honored to co-host the fourth session of the poetry series sponsored by the League of Canadian Poets, together with Shorewy Culture Services and Lakeside Academy of Canada. We have two wonderful poets laureate, George Elliott Clarke and Anna In, with us. Welcome, George. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes,
thank you.
thank you.
We're so happy to have you. Anna will be facilitating tonight's event, and she will have some more introduction of our esteemed guest speakers. And for our audience, we are recording this session, so please could you mute yourself and turn off your video while our guest speakers are talking. And at the end, Anna will open floor for discussions. At that time, you're more than welcome to unmute yourself, turn on video, and talk with our poets. Before that, if you have any questions, please send it to the chat room. We have another poet, Renee Scroy, tonight to work as our volunteer to take care of the chat room. Thank you, Renee. So without further ado, I'll give the time to George and Anna. Anna.
Hi, thank you, Wang Yang, for introduction. It's a beautiful introduction. And now it's my honor to introduce our guest poet, George Elliott Clarke. So now I'm sharing the screen for George's biography. And so I will read it. And George Elliott Clarke was the fourth Poet Laureate of Toronto and the seventh Canadian Poet Laureate. George is a revered artist in song, drama, fiction, screenplay, essays, and poetry. He has published 33 books. I list some books here. And George was born in Windsor, Nova Scotia in 1960 and educated at the University of Waterloo, Dalhousie University, and Queen's University. George is also a pioneer scholar of African Canadian literature, a professor of English at the University of Toronto. George also has taught at the Duke, McGill, at the University of British Columbia, and Harvard. And George holds 8 honorary doctorates plus appointments to the Order of Nova Scotia and the Order of Canada at the rank of officer. So George has so many achievements, and he also won the Governor General Awards for Poetry, the National Magazine Gold Award for Poetry, the Dartmouth Book Award for Fiction, and the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Achievement Award. Actually, I have Googled George's website, and I found a very, very interesting introduction by himself, and I found this is very personal and very alive, and has a lot of story behind. So I want to welcome George to. How about you? Reintroduce yourself in your own language. Do you want?
Well, Anna, thank you so much. And I want to thank Young Wang as well for that wonderful introduction to this evening. I think that everything you said says enough.
Okay.
About me. I'm honored and blessed that I am able to join you and so many others in this beautiful art of poetry. we all come to poetry from different directions, from different angles. And I hope no one will mind if I say that poetry is sort of like a god and a goddess. It's a god and goddess in one out there or up
Oh,
there. And
yes.
we find our way to that goddess, we find our way to that god from different paths. And each path that we take as individuals is beautiful. It's beautiful, so long as we end up there in that realm. And I think that for those of us who are gathered here tonight, through the magic of electronica, maybe, have all taken that path and or are on that path still, as I know I am, and I know you are too, Anna, and others too. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say in terms of our getting started tonight.
Okay, wonderful. But I still encourage everyone to go to George's website to read his own introduction. It's amazing. It's just making you feel so alive. This person, this human being, are very, very good. And also, I hear George. I don't know. You still I don't know. You still. I don't know you still remember when we met, but I know it in 2013. And at that time, I was Ontario representative for the League of Canadian Poets.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I tried to support poets. So I went to the East End the Poetry Festival. And so you're reading there, and you was Toronto's poet laureate. And so I introduced myself. I bought your book, this book.
Oh, thank you, Anna. Again, I see it all over again.
Every time I remember you, only $20.
That's right. It was only $20, and it's hardcover. And it's
yes,
hardcover.
each book is only $20. Each book is like that. I have another book as well. I bought several books, but I want to show this book because I know you. Another for your books, you try to borrow the true stories. And for I believe this is a couple's story that lived in Nova Scotia, right? And you borrow the story and use so it's all sonnet, and you use sonnet to retell the story, the love story, the life journey, and the struggle, and so that made me think of personal is political, right?
Yes.
and because we can see the struggle, how they made the decision, it's all based on the social classes, right? Social class, and they had so much social issues in this book as well. And also that book is your it's your autobiography, right?
Yes.
It's autobiography. So you use your own personal journey, personal story, and also it's sonnets to tell your personal experience and all the struggles, and it's wonderful. And these two books, although they're all sonnets, the style is so different. The voice, the tone is so different. I like them very much, but it's very difficult to translate. It's very
I'm sorry. Yeah. Really.
I tried to read, to try to find some poems I wanted to translate, but I couldn't. It's so difficult. Anyway, so could you explain a little bit your motivation to write books like that, like use other people's story, and to what you see from like the social troubles, or what touched you for these books? Then you write these books.
Anna, your question is a great question, and I think you are a great answer to the question you just asked. And I'm serious when I say that, because now that I'm 60 years old, I look back over my life, and I look back over my beginnings as a teenager in trying to write poetry. And I think what I've come to understand in the last 45 years, because I started when I was 15, in 1975. What I've come to understand is that poetry is a conversation between ourselves and our muses, or the muse, but it's also a conversation between ourselves and all the other poets who come before us, and in whatever language that we might find them, and also the poets who are around us now, who live at the same time we live, and who may be friends, or maybe influences, and maybe long distance people that we admire, but who inhabit our spirit simultaneously with ourselves. So that's a long way of saying that, keeping in mind that all language is beautiful and all cultures are beautiful because they all come from some idea of the divine. I think that translation is crucial for helping us to bridge the gaps between languages and to understand each other as human beings, as poets, and so on. And that's why I began my answer to your question by saying that you are a great example of what I try to do in my own way as being somebody who's really only Anglophone. I've got a little bit of French, just a little bit, and I make my way in the world through that little bit of French and a whole lot of English. But I have great respect for poets like yourself, Ezra Pound, many, many others who are able to approach our art with so many different languages, and to strengthen their own poetic through their access to these other languages. And I'm jealous. I wish I knew more languages. I wish I had a better understanding even of French. I wish I understood English.
You know, yeah, we will talk about that later. Yeah, we will talk about that later. But for doing all these sessions, I learned a lot. Really, truly, I'm so happy to do that. But your book, I think, for me, I think sometimes you borrow other people's book because you see yourself there, right? Because you think, oh, maybe their story is my story. And yeah, this is our humans' compassion, our humanity, right? So yeah, I think, yeah, wonderful. And now, because you mentioned your background, and you mentioned the people go before us, and I want to share a poem of yours, and I hope you can recite the poem. Some people made a poem. Made a video for your poem, so I want to share that.
Oh, yes.
Then you recite it. It's okay. So I will
Yes.
share my screen, and let me share my screen. Okay. So do you see my screen as a video? Like It's a video.
Yes, I see it.
Okay. Okay. Wait a moment. Let me just make it bigger. Okay. Why? Oh, because it's a little bit slow. Wait. Okay, good. Could you recite?
Oh, all right. Well, I have to find the poem.
Oh, you couldn't see the screen?
Oh, I can see the screen, but I have to find the poem.
Well,
I could just, you're right. I can just recite off the screen too, can't I?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I'll just go along with the screen. I'll follow the screen.
Yeah.
Othello practices white rum. His scale of just music. And clears the love song of muddying his morals. He sets his glass down lovingly. A whole chorus of molecules sloshing in harmony. He vows he will not. He will not. He will not be a dead hero. No way, suffering. A beautiful sleep. Trimmed with ochre, hazelnut, dressed in mahogany, smelling of last minute honey and tears. Regrets rained upon him, too late, in the guise of wilted, frail flowers. Instead, he will sleep right now while he still can, up to his thighs in thighs, up to his thighs in thighs, nah, dried salty smelts, and a water song with rum. Sweet Sissaboo, run softly till I end my song. I stroll outside with strange music in my skull. Here's the Sissaboo River, tossed tinfoil crinkling along the ground. Undistracted by all the grave loves it attracts. All those late romantics who spelt lake poet Wordsworth. The world is too much with us late and soon. And brood upon the river's shimmering bliss before tossing themselves within, pretending to be Percy Bysshe Shelley at La Ritchie. I've thought of the Sissaboo in those erotic ways. Dreamt it as midnight thick voluptuous folding. Like a million moths, furry with a dry raininess over one. No matter where you are in Sunflower County, you can hear it pooling, milling in a rainstorm, or thundering over a hapless town. Even now I can hear its shining roar pouring over Shelley's house, polishing the roses that nod drunken, or spring petaled crude from earth. All I hear is an old song. Her voice lilting, lover man, lover man. Each moment is magnificent.
So thank you, George,
Thank you.
for your wonderful performance. I know you always, when you recite the poems, you always pour so much energy. And and each time after your reading, I always joke that you need to have another supper. Or have a drink, have a good drink, right?
Right on.
Yeah, right. Anyway, so as I my background, and I grew up in and had my education in mainland China, right? So we had politics as a subject. Everyone needed to learn to study, but for ordinary people, we always think politics is so far away. We couldn't get involved, right? And the politics in our daily life. But when I immigrated in Canada, I found the huge change. Huge change is now our daily life is related with politics. And for example, we also needed to fulfill our right to vote, to go to select, to speak up, to show our responsibility as well. So everyone here in Canada, let me feel, and our daily life is related to politics. So that's huge change for us, for another Chinese immigrant, and we also need to encourage everyone to try to get involved in politics. And I think I had the wonderful opportunity, right? Also, I learned from you. After I was appointed as the Port Laureate for Mississauga, right? And I'm thinking of this role, the Port Laureate. The role actually is represent, right? Represent a kind of politics, right? We need to represent the city. For you, represent Toronto, then represent Canada, right?
Yes.
And to promote the art, promote poetry, and also to engage the public, and to speak up, to discuss the social issues and the social justice. And I learned a lot from you. So I want to share some screen we did together, some events we did together. So, and yeah, okay, let me see. So yeah, as you see, and when you was in Toronto Port Laureate, you have set up another project. One project is a poetry map. The poetry map is for Toronto, right? So people everyone can submit the poem about the Toronto, the city, the place, some place, and you write a poem, you submit, and you put and link the poem to the map. So it's wonderful, and I submitted my poem, and later I was invited to read, right? And my poem is Toronto, no more weeping, because yeah, it's a tragedy happened in Toronto, right? Then I wrote this to call for help, or to call for hope, to call for peace. And I know so many people submitted their poems for this project. It's wonderful. Thank you. And later on, you also did another program for culture bridging. So you encouraged me to do the Chinese and the Canadian poets reading events, right?
Oh yeah.
So we co-hosted together in 2015. We co-hosted, and we wanted to celebrate the great Chinese ancient poet Qu Yuan. So, and they had more than 40 poets. Some is Canadian poets, some Chinese poets, and we also have a translation poem and translation there. So wonderful. Thank you. And at the first session with Molly Peacock, I also showed some photo, because she was also featured poets read there. So and you encouraged me, you asked me to do it every year. Anyway, why not? Anyway, and also we did this is we promote the poetry power to encourage the general public to speak up and to give voice. Through poetry, through literature, and through different arts as well. So we also have a music here, right? We combine the poetry with musician, and we combine the poetry with painting other arts, film as well. So for this one, and I have the honor, and you invited me to celebrate the William Shakespeare's Shakespeare at the CBC Radio, right?
Yeah,
And for the 400 year celebration, right? And
that's great.
yeah, and they try to discuss why Shakespeare still matter, right? Still alive.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Last year we did for the several readings for Great Lakes, poets laureate reading on social justice, and we this book, right? That all is Great Lakes poet
yes,
laureates works, and you have
undocumented.
yeah, they had so many events, and we ask the public to discuss the social issue and to see if we can find some solution or improvement and engaged with. I know you did a lot, so you could you share a little bit the role of poets and also the role of politicians, and how similar they are.
Well, I think that a poet, even though we may be very uh, self-absorbed in some ways, or may be really focused on ourselves in some ways, I think that poets and poets laureate have a role in trying to address ourselves to the people, the public. And that means we carry the understanding that our poetry is not only for ourselves. I do think that it's really important that our personalities and our lives and our biographies are there in the poems. But I also feel, especially if we have been put in a public category, such as poet laureate, that we have to try to represent our neighbors, our families, our cultures, our government in positive ways, in terms of speaking to all of the truths that matter, that will always matter, in terms of health, in terms of income, in terms of family, in terms of peace and prosperity. I think these are the things that poets have always wanted for everybody from the very beginning, from the very beginnings of language. And that it's a very simple thing for ourselves as poets laureate, to try to communicate that back. Because that's our job. That is our job. That's our duty. Our duty is to honor the feelings of the people as best as we can find them in ourselves, and echo them back, give them back. It's a gift, and we can't expect anything in return except maybe to be read. Maybe somebody will read us. Maybe somebody will quote us. But whether that happens or not, we have a duty as intellectuals, as citizens, as poets, to give back in this way, to give back in terms of trying to express for the people what their innermost feelings might be regarding government and regarding policies, as we ourselves, as brother and sister citizens, may feel those interests to be.
Yeah, yeah, and I remember in your video you mentioned in your poem you mentioned several times Shelley, right? And Shelley claimed that poets are the unacknowledged legislators, right, of the
Yes.
world. So yeah, so I
Yeah.
think yeah. Okay, so and let's go back to translation. Yeah, we will talk about translation. So I will share let me see. I will share the screen again for translation. Yeah, you know, and Mirror and Windows, like the book next year will be published, right?
Yeah.
I have translated 6 poems of yours, and tonight we will discuss 2. We will discuss
Mhm.
2, and I invited you to write an introduction like last year, and you wrote a beautiful introduction and said on translation. So, and I like your idea. You said even for yourself, writing a poem is like a translation. It's similar process as translation. Could you explain a little bit more?
I think that the art of being a poet is always about translating our experiences into words that might resonate with other people. So we're always trying to translate our own hearts, our own lungs, our own brains, our own lips and mouths and lungs and throats to other people, to potential readers, because poetry always begins in the gut. It begins in vocalization. Even though we are intellectuals and we intellectualize what we create in terms of images and so on, we are creatures of bodies. We are beings with bodies. We are beings of flesh. And so sooner or later, no matter how intellectual we may be in writing, what we create comes out of deep down inside, comes from the center of our bodies, from our bowels, from our hearts and our lungs, once again, from our pelvises, whatever those stimuluses may be, whatever those inspirations may be, that's what we take to create our work. And in locating our work in our own bodies, it's easier for us than maybe to try to speak on behalf of the society, to try to speak on behalf of the collective, because we are all, no matter what our politics might be, we are all bodies. And I would love for politicians to remember that. No matter what our religions are, no matter what our politics are, we are all just flesh and blood and nervous systems. That's all we are. And desires and appetites for food and drink and so on. That's all we are. And that's the poet's job, is to remind everybody all the time that you have the great gift of intellect and of consciousness, but you are only a body in the end.
Thank you. And also, for your introduction, you also mentioned that you have, because your background is very complex, right? Your inheritage, right? So many language as well. So when you write poetry, you needed to find the words from that inheritage of language and this inherited language, because you have so many branch, like the different branches of the inheritage, the language. So yeah. And now I want to share the video from your former students, and before Qi Liang, and before I invited him to co-host the event, but he couldn't come. He couldn't join today, and he was in China. So he recorded his video. So I wanted to play that. And
okay, here we go. Hi, Anna. Thank you very much for inviting me to this very special event. I'm sorry I have to do this this way. Hi, Professor Clarke. Long time no see. I really miss you. Well, I'm Qi Liang from Suzhou University of Science and Technology, China. I studied under Professor Clarke's supervision a couple of years ago at the University of Toronto. I learned quite a lot from him, both in and off class. He's such an inspiring and talented figure. After I came back home, he asked if I could translate some of his poems into Chinese. I couldn't believe my ears. To translate the poet laureate of Canada's work into Chinese. Oh my God. With fear, excitement, and anxiety, I accepted this daunting if not impossible, mission. The one that particularly resonated with me is the one entitled Chairman Mao. Actually, Mao inks the People's Liberation Army captures Nanking. In this collection on page 431. Everybody in China knows that period of history. In 1949, a lot of things happened. Okay, history, the course of history was changed as well. But to see it reenacted in poetic works is something totally new, at least to me. Okay, I've tried my best to capture the essence of this poem in the translation, but as the saying goes, translation is what is lost in translation. Reading this poem, you can feel unmistakably the weight of history. The speaker unveils the very complex inner world of Mao at that very particular historic moment. You can sense the very complex feelings of Chairman Mao, a combination, a mysterious combination of both ambition and uncertainty. Okay, I'd like to end this very short video with a comment from Perloff, okay, a very prominent critic. Okay, she said, each poem in this complex panorama poem is self-sufficient, and yet the lyrics add up to a searing picture of civilizations in their rise and fall, making no bones about the omnipresent human violence within us. Clarke's erudition is spectacular, his sense of timing remarkable, and he superbly renders the speech patterns of his figures. Thank you again, Professor Clarke, Anna. I really hope I can see you very soon in China, and I hope that I can have the chance to translate both of your excellent works into Chinese in future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jilian. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we are back to our translation now. So we will now discuss your translation by me. And now we will talk about the two poems. And this one, I chose this one, although it seems simple, but that has a very certain pattern and also rhyme. It's a wonderful poem and also profound meaning. So that's why I really like you to read this poem. Then I will read my translation and discuss it.
Okay, I'm going to show this image, which is by the artist Susan Took in Halifax, and so this is her image for the poem, which I call Self-Composed. And thank you, Anna, for choosing this poem, and thank you for thinking of it as being profound. I like to think that it might be profound. I like to think so.
I will say later.
It's one of those poems, as I'm sure you've experienced too. I wrote this poem and I saw a field of daisies, and I just wrote it right away. Back in 2012. So here it is. It's today that I can see daisies play at being me. Beaming gold, they bend and sway, limber, bold, and narcic, gay, holding out their leaves like hands. They don't shout or make demands. They're quiet, quite, but not shy. Their riot is their beauty. If I seem a weed to some eyes, I dream, and flower I am.
You are. Anyway, okay, you are. So we will discuss the poem now. Okay, we will discuss it. And so this poem, although it seems simple, but I found the meaning the message is profound. And because it's like, because in today's political world, right? Everyone, each of us, it's equal. Each of us is beautiful. And so no matter who you are, where are you from, right? So I said, that's why we need to have this confidence. We need to have this beauty. And thank you for your saying my accent is charming. I always remember I have a poem for that. My accent is charming, right?
It's a great poem.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So for this poem, because as everyone can hear, that has a very wonderful rhyme system, a scheme, right? And also they has each line has 3, 4, 3, 4 syllables. So the structure and the pattern. So when I translated, I also wanted to keep the same pattern and keep the same rhyme. So as you can see, I use the structure, the very neat, very neat structure as well, and pattern as well. And but I saw in your poem you use they are there, right? So in Chinese, as I said before, with Molly Peacock and with Al Morris for that poem, and when in the poem they use they, when translated in Chinese, I need to decide what gender I choose, female or male. So for them, I follow the context of that poem. Then I choose a gender. I feel it more match the poem. But for your poem, I decide not to choose any gender. Don't translate the gender. But so how do I do that? So I use one way to do that. I use this way. So I just use these 2 words. I use these 2 words means one by one, beautiful.
It is beautiful. It is.
One by one, beautiful. And together, they're beautiful. So no need to put the gender there. So this way, but because in today's world, some people are so sensitive, right? And the gender become a political issue now. So so that's why I just avoided it. So this poem can be any kind of to represent everyone, to represent each one. So here I want to read my translation for you.
Please.
Okay. 泰然自得，就在今天，我得以见识，自己扮演本真的自己，闪着金光，弯腰轻摇晃，机敏大方，自由解舒畅。本出绿叶，像手儿一样，同不索要，也不去叫嚷，好生安静，却并不害羞，精彩缤纷，朵朵闪灵秀。如某些眼看我是杂草，我仍梦见我是花一朵。 So that's all. Thank you. Thank you. Also, okay, later maybe because we don't have time, we will move on. Well, some people ask here, this sort of why the quiet is quiet, is quiet. So I'm thinking you maybe because you want to rhyme, you change the order, right?
Well, I'm just no. I was thinking about the wind moving through the weeds or the flowers, and it's basically quiet. Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
But at the same time, as I say in the poem, the riot is the beauty, the white and the yellow of the weed, or if one prefers the flower. The flower is its own riot. You don't need to have a whole lot of symphony or orchestra or recorded music, and it goes along with what I'm saying earlier in that they don't shout or make demands. They are just simply there. They
Yeah.
just exist. So they're not making a lot of noise. They're just bobbing along with the wind. But nevertheless, their existence is their beauty.
Yes, yes, we understand that. And one person just wonder if they are quiet, quiet.
Yeah,
So you because your rhyme, you change the quiet. It's like delayed to the next line.
yeah.
To move to okay, good. Okay, we'll move on to next poem. And so this poem is clearly political poem. Clearly, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
This poem, maybe we can still say is a personal story. It's but this one is clearly political,
Okay.
right? Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. But so and I found that you wrote a lot of a poem like that as well. It's like a statement, very powerful, but it's so difficult to translate
Hmm.
because you have a lot of allusion there, right? You you have a double meaning or multi meanings. You refer to the historical events or like Bibles or like philosophical thoughts, and not for them in
Yes.
there. So it's a little bit difficult to translate. And at the beginning, when I read this poem, I saw the title. I immediately thought about the Bible. I immediately thought, but I know you are using, you are borrowed the Bible style, right? And
Yep.
using as a historical events, what
Yeah.
happening, right? And it's true. And for like the word, the words, and in Chinese we have a saying. It's like the always the history is written by the conqueror.
Hmm.
The winner write the history. So
Yeah.
we don't know exactly what happened, right? So yeah, this is the perfect to say that, right? Anyway, and I think I wouldn't read I wouldn't read the translation because the translation is more for word. I decided to translate word for word because it's so difficult to to do other way. So for me, I use this word for word translation. And also everyone know, right? When I do translate like that, people already understand. So what why I needed to use other way to do that. Anyway, so or could you read this? Just to give us a favor.
Yes, thank you, Anna, and thank you for translating it as well. The title of this poem is Experience, Chapter 1, verses 1 to 9, because I am trying to echo the Bible and Ecclesiastes and so on. But so here's the poem. History is nothing like what is reported, hard to drain light from mud. Trumpets don't usher in heaven. Truth blinds, but deceit dazzles. Flames that don't gleam are smoke. Manure gerrymanders gardens. Eden flowers from shit. Fine wine refines urine. Fine wine refines urine. Politics is prejudice. Politics is prejudice. Behind these black letters, white bone, invisible breath. Bread is eternal, but your words?
Mhm. Very ironic, right? And also match the first line, right? It's yeah, it's kind of it's ironic as well. Okay, so because and I like your performance is always wonderful. I guess our audience already love your performance now. It's like it's
I'm touched,
uh,
sincerely. I mean, yeah.
I also like this poem very much. Although
Oh,
although people think it's simple, but I still found it's very deep meaning. And it's also fit today's the difficulty time. And because all of a lot of people now look everything attached to a price, attached
yeah,
to a cost, right? How much? How
yes,
much for that? How much? How much for that? Even for love, right? And if you love
yes.
someone, okay, do you have a mouth? Do you have a house? Do you have a car? Do you have money? And if so, I will marry you. Even so, but, but in your poem, you tell us no, no, forget about the cost, forget about the price, no attachment, no string attached, right? Love is love, it's pure love, and the life you gave out. So
Yeah.
no price attached them. Okay, could you read this poem? Thank you.
Yes, I will, and I'm so happy to share this with everyone once again. It's the title is "Everything is Free," and I will confess, I wish it were true that
Yeah, I
everything
know.
is free. But as we all know from the old saying, all the important things in life are free. And I was thinking about that in writing this song because that's really what it is. It's a song. Everything is free. So here it is. Wipe away tears. Set free your fears. Everything is free. Only the lonely need much money.
Money
Everything
is
is
free.
free. Don't try to
Try to
find
find
the love
love
you
you
find.
find.
Everyone
Everyone is
is free.
free.
Your lover's yours. Surrender force. Everyone
Everyone
is
is
free.
free.
The sun melts down, spreads gold around.
Around.
Everything
Everything is
is free. The rain is spent lending flowers. Scent. Everything is free. The love you live, the life you give, everything is free. The sun melts down, spreads gold around. Everything is free. The rain is spent, lending flowers scent. Everything is free. The love you live, the life you give, everything is free.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, yes, that sometimes I feel like that, like the nature, right? For example, the sun gave us the heat, gave us the light. They didn't ask for anything. So as a human, we should do the same, right? Anyway, this is just too I did it. Okay. Anyway, so yeah,
You, you,
I
should let, you should let me read your poem. your haiku with the
Oh,
sun.
oh yeah, sure. Mhm.
Okay, so I'm going to read your poem. I'm about to read Anna Yin's poem, everybody. So here it is, and I probably am not going to read it well enough, but I'll try. So it's sort of like a haiku, Anna's poem is. And she's got a photograph of the sun about to go down. It's dusk, it's sunset. But here is the poem. It's only 3 lines, very simple. Above the mountain ranges, a red balloon looms, no strings attached.
Thank you. There is a movie called No Strings Attached. Also.
Well, it sort of suits the theme of everything is free.
Yeah, exactly.
No strings attached. Yeah.
Yeah, the beauty is free, and we should have the gratitude, right, for that. Okay, thank you. So almost 9 o'clock. I like this poem very much, but I know tonight you are very tired. So
it's okay. I'll read it. If you want me to read it, I'll read it.
Okay, good. They also have a video online. If you feel tired, I can ask them to check out the video.
Okay. So thank you, Anna, for choosing this poem too, for us to celebrate and for us to think about. Of course, the title is Kaddish for Leonard Cohen, or Kaddish for Leonard Cohen, a la manière d'Allen Ginsberg. And Allen Ginsberg, the great Jewish American poet, with his great poem Howl, had a big influence on the Jewish Canadian singer, songwriter, poet Leonard Cohen. A huge influence. And I got to tell you one other personal thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was asked by Innis College at University of Toronto in March 2016 if I would do a lecture for them, a guest lecture. And I said yes. And I said, I want to talk about Leonard Cohen's first novel, Beautiful Losers, published in 1966. And Innis College said, yes, let's do that. And we decided the date. And the date was early November 2016. So it was all agreed. And so that's the time I was supposed to show up to give the lecture. And I did. So November rolls around, November 2016, and I give the lecture. And it was well attended, about 200 people or so, questions and answers, blah, blah, blah. It was all very good. And then the next night, which was November 10th, 2016, I had another presentation in St. Catharines, Ontario. And just as I was about to go up on stage, a gentleman approached me with his smartphone and said, Leonard Cohen has died. It was so weird because I had just spoken about him the night before in Toronto. The night before I'd spoken about him. And so I was just really freaked out. It was all spooky that I gave this lecture on Leonard Cohen, and then I find out the next day that he had just passed away, right? So I wrote this poem, which is really a song, and there's a recording of it by Susan Odle, O-D-L-E, who's a folk musician in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. O-D-L-E, Susan Odle, and I think she did a great job with this. But this poem I wrote on November 11th as I was flying to Ottawa to take part in Remembrance Day ceremonies as poet laureate. And so I wrote this poem just based on my feelings of regret for Leonard Cohen's passing, and also just the surrealism of that moment. So here it is, Kaddish for Leonard Cohen, a la manière d'Allen Ginsberg. This terrible, irritable dawn, this morning of mourning, his obituary, crowbars apart, prophecy and nostalgia. Always native to heaven, minting gleaming melodies, freeing a nailed down Christ, obeying the mating calls of mandolins and guitars. He never abstained from liberty, never lost the intelligence of Dylan dark sunglasses, and light making masterpieces of shambles, or lighting up cages where lovers low, lousy with tears and sighs. Poet of everything, he transcended, poet of everything, he transcended conclaves of critics, the murders of poets, all those copycats, sordid franchisees of blues, every presidency serving up immaculate corruption, the stale white bread circulated with grease. I need to repeat that given the current president of the United States. Sordid franchisees of blues, every presidency serving up immaculate corruption, the stale white bread circulated with grease. His insatiable suitcase portaging Gog and Magog in eastern Quebec, Hydra, Rue Maine, Manhattan, Havana, pursued the ghosts of glory, parliaments of movie screens, fiestas of butterflies, and secret eros everywhere. After auditing the news, I suffered the insomnia of steel nails, heads battered until drowsy, woozy in wood. Eternity expires as eyes close, or we succumb to sobbing, but the honest poet voids the dirty mind of grief. The honest poet voids the dirty mind of grief, knows the poet's grave is his deathless poems, dark, remorseless beauty, light that scalpel's eyes open, light that scalpel's eyes open. And that's one of those poems that just basically wrote itself. It just wrote itself.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, and I know, so we will open up for question and answer. George, I know you are very tired, but could you stay for 10 more minutes?
Yes, certainly.
Okay, good. So, and now so everyone, you are welcome to start your video and unmute yourself. If you have a question, you can ask George, because 10 minutes later, he wanted to sign off. So,
I love the moment. Thank you, Anna.
So yeah, everyone, you're welcome to start your video and unmute yourself. If you have question, you can ask. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, George and Anna. I was deeply touched, George. I wish I were with you when you perform that everything is free. It's so expressive, beautiful. And you have so deep feelings for Leonard Cohen. Did you ever like meet him, or did he have any influence on you?
Yang Wang, look, thank you so much for your question, and thank you so much for enjoying the presentation tonight. And I want to thank Anna again for inviting me to be part of this great discussion. I got to say, look, I never got to meet Leonard Cohen personally, but I did see him once. I was about to fly back from New York. This was 2015. I was flying back from New York to Toronto, and he was arriving in New York from Toronto. And so I saw him, but I was too shy at the airport in Newark, New Jersey. I was too shy to say, "Hey, Mr. Cohen," you know, I was just too shy. So, but I saw him, I recognized him, of course, as he was getting off the plane and he was coming into New York City, or to Newark, New Jersey. but that's the closest I ever got to him. I could have reached out and touched his coat, for crying out loud. But again, I was just too shy. I was too Canadian. I was too much, like trying to make sure that he had his space and wasn't being bothered by me. So I just have that memory of him passing me by as he went about his business, and I was getting ready to fly back to Toronto. But thank you for that. In terms of influence, of course, because I was born in 1960, so I grew up in the 1960s. And Leonard Cohen's songs really became important for my parents, who bought his records, and therefore for me, because I had no choice, because my parents controlled the stereo. I didn't, they did. It was their stereo. So they controlled the stereo, so they played what they wanted to play. And I was too young to be able to buy my own records. I couldn't. So they played Leonard Cohen. And so I heard him, and Songs from a Room is the album that really sticks in my mind. And the songs of Leonard Cohen as well, and the hit records, Hey, That's No Way to Say Goodbye, and So Long, Marianne, and Suzanne. These were played all the time in my household as a boy. So I had no choice but to be influenced by him. And then when I started to write poetry, or try to write poetry, I had his example always there in the back of my mind, and I still have. I still own a 45 record, one of those old-fashioned records that you got to play on a little turntable, a 45 of, Hey, That's No Way to Say Goodbye, and on the other side is So Long, Marianne. And maybe it's the other way around, where one of the songs is the A side, and the other song is the B side. I don't know now. I'd have to go and Google it to see, okay, which song was the #1 song that was released. But I own that 45, and I also own a copy of Songs from a Room that I inherited from my late father when he passed away in 2005. So I've got Leonard Cohen in my heritage, in my ancestry, and in my record collection.
Thank you. And you have so much passion for writing poetry about politics. So you have strong opinions about. Is there a time like your point of view evolved, that you change your mind, and you wrote a poem about one thing, but later you change your attitude or mind or opinion? Is there a time, and how do you feel like the poems you wrote, and did you ever write another poem to reflect your new thoughts?
Yang Wing, I thank you again for that question, and I need to say that like you and like Anna and like so many of us who are, I know I can say, thoughtful people, I want the best for us. I want the best for humanity. I want us to treat each other as equal. I want us to love each other as fellow creatures and human beings. I really do want that for all of us. But at the same time, that's true. We are divided. We are divided by economic systems, by political systems, by history, and the ideologies that come into play: racism, sexism, fascism, anti-Semitism, capitalism, communism, and so on. All these things get in the way of our being able to be together as people. But I hope I can say I was lucky that when I was a teenager, I began to understand how oppression works and how many of us are oppressed, no matter what system of government we might find ourselves living under, but that most human beings are oppressed by one system or another. We have one system might be more of a dictatorship, another system might be more business oriented, but the result is the same. We end up feeling oppressed and being oppressed for real, because the rich don't want to share and the powerful don't want to give up their power. I don't care what people call the system, whatever they choose to call it. They can call it whatever they want. But the bottom line is the same as it's always been, the same as Confucius thought, the same as Plato thought, the same as Jesus thought, the same as Martin Luther King thought, the same as Malcolm X thought, the same as many great thinkers throughout our time as human beings have thought, which is that the rich don't want to share and the powerful don't want to give up their power. So in my own small way, I respond to what I consider to be the truth. And I do believe that that is the truth. I'm happy to live in Canada. I'm glad I have a government that I think of as being democratic. I'm glad that I have a government that basically, mostly, usually defends human rights and civil liberties, usually 99% of the time. I'm happy, I'm honored, I'm privileged to live in such a society. But it doesn't change the fact that we as human beings around the planet are put down by the very governments that we elect or the very governments that we allow to rule us. And I don't think that should be the case. I'm not trying to get on a soapbox here or preach or anything, but I think that we are smart enough and good enough as people, as human beings, that we can organize ourselves better so that we can take care of each other. And I like to say this, I gotta say it. I don't have a problem with rich people. I don't. I think rich people should be rich, especially if they've invented things or done things that can help everybody else. I think that rich people should benefit from their inventions and the things that they've done that make everybody else's life better. So bring on the rich. Bring them on. Let them be rich. I don't mind. It's okay. But they got to pay their taxes. They still got to pay their taxes.
Should be fair. Should be fair. To everyone.
That's right. So
anyway, okay. Thank you. I know. Okay, George, I just want to let you know some translators also translate your poem, and I don't know if you have time to see the translation or you need to go.
Okay, it's all right. I'll hang on, Anna.
Okay, so Liu Yang there. If you want to quickly share your translation, you can. So but we don't have too much time. So I just If you want.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you very much. I did translate the poem of Mr. George Elliott Clarke. Actually, I do love the rhyme and the rhyme scheme of that poem. And since we know at the very beginning of the history, poems are supposed to be sung. And so that is why I love the rhyme very much. But actually, I'm not, I do have enough confidence to relieve the beauty and the rhymes of that poem. Especially, I do have some misunderstanding of the words of quiet and quiet.
Oh, yes.
If you don't mind, I can just read what I have translated to you.
Okay.
Anna, here, may I just share the screen now?
Yang Wang, you opened the sharing, right? They can share, right?
Okay, let me do that.
Okay, she will quickly, she will quickly
oh, yes.
open it.
I will. So,
and if anyone have the question for George, last call.
Okay, now Liu Yang can share her screen.
Okay.
I have a question, Anna.
Okay.
After the reading?
Okay, after the reading. Okay.
So, can you see the screen now?
Yes,
I can.
Okay. So this is my Chinese translation. 自咏自叹。今天我看见雏菊假扮成我，耀眼的金黄，它们弯折摇曳，柔弱、大胆、奔放、 畅欢。它们的叶子如手般伸展，既不祈求，也不叫喊。它们是那么安静，却不腼腆。喧嚣就是它们的美颜。倘若我在某些人的眼里仿若草芥，那我希望如花一般。Okay, thank you. That's
Okay.
my translation.
Beautiful. Thank
Yeah,
you.
beautiful.
That's very
I
beautiful.
yeah. Liu Yang, I will discuss with you later when we
Okay,
have time.
okay.
Okay. So
Yes.
could Renee, you have a last question for George, right?
One question, but it's got multiple parts. But I wanted to say thank you, Anna, for hosting. This is a great event. I was at the last one, and it was these are such interesting events. And thank you, George, for your reading. It was really inspirational, and all of the things that you said about translation. And the question I have relates to translation. So you were talking about language being that translation from the muse or the inspiration or God or goddesses, whatever you want to call it. I'm wondering also, and then you had the quote, or Anna had the quote up about, even though, you might only know the one language, it's English, but it comes with its own history of the French, the Anglo-Saxon, the Latin, and so forth. I'm wondering also, and maybe you've written about this elsewhere, and so pardon my ignorance, but in terms of your own ancestry and your own heritage, do you feel that there's maybe almost like, like a ghost in the language that's there for you, that you're trying to maybe translate, but you can't because it's not really, I mean, in terms of your own identity, whether your own heritage is, how do you translate that, if that makes sense? And I'm kind of thinking of, Roland Barthes and that image of going through the turnstile and you're trying to chase after language, but there's always that slippage that's happening. But I was kind of thinking of both of those things with this question. So it's kind of a large question. So I don't know if you have anything to say about that.
Renee, thank you so much for that question. And I will say that I think my entire writing life has been a response to that angst and that anxiety about how do I work through this language that is so intimately connected with slavery and with imperialism, and still is. So that the very idea of the word black, or the imagery connected with the word black, tends to be, for the most part, very negative. And that it's the first word that people look to, or the first set of images people look for to describe, at least in Western cultures, what they perceive as being negative or devilish or evil or bad, and so on. And so as someone who carries the race traits of that imagery, so that I can be automatically seen as being all of those negatives as soon as I step outside my door, it means that my relationship to the language that posits me or posits other Black people, so-called Black people in this way, as being very uneasy. It's a very uneasy relationship, and one that I need to try to negotiate every day, and I think as a writer every day. I'm reminded of W.E.B. Du Bois, the great African-American writer, thinker, philosopher, sociologist, political scientist, encyclopedic thinker, and anthologist as well, that we end up feeling a kind of, or inheriting or expressing a kind of double consciousness. And of course, he's borrowing that phrase from Hegel, but he's virtually made it his own. The whole idea of double consciousness, it may come from Hegel, but it's basically Du Bois, because Du Bois really took it to heart as a student at the University of Berlin back in the early 20th century. And so he comes back to that. He comes back to the idea by saying, essentially, elaborating the idea that the Black American, in his context, Black America, we can say most Black people who have come through either slavery or colonialism or both end up having a kind of double consciousness, which is essentially contradictory perspectives on ourselves. On the one hand, we can admire the glories of Shakespeare, the glories of English literature, the glories of Western civilization. And on the other hand, simultaneously, we can say this culture and this civilization and this language have been extremely oppressive, violently oppressive of those of us who do not fit within the canonical structures of what is considered to be good or intelligent or smart or progressive or just or whatever kind of category one wants to put forward as being positive as opposed to negative, whereas Black ends up almost automatically being negative, to the point that any police person, almost any police force in any part of the Western world, including Europe, as well as North America, can feel free, can feel at ease to shoot me down, just put myself forward as an example, to shoot me down as a suspect, simply because of my color and therefore my affiliation with the oppressed and therefore my affiliation with the criminal, my affiliation with the marginalized. And so to come back to your originating question, Renee, how on earth could I ever feel easy using English to express myself when that very language is responsible for putting forward the constructs that continue to marginalize and oppress and victimize people who look like me, who are darker than me, who are lighter than me, who come through the same experiences of colonialism, imperialism, and slavery as my ancestors came through. And so the ultimate response is, I gotta have a love-hate relationship with this language. I have to, and I do. I admit it. I got a love-hate relationship. I can like Shakespeare and I can hate Shakespeare. I can like aspects of living in the West, and I can loathe the hypocrisy of living in the West. You know, when people talk to me about charter rights and freedoms, Constitution, you have these rights and that right, I say, where? Where do I have these rights? I know I've got these rights on paper, but I don't have them when I walk out the door. I don't have them when I drive my car. I don't have them when the police stop me. I don't have them people follow me in shops thinking I'm going to steal something when I could probably afford to buy the shop. You know, so these are the conundrums that come with working with this imposed language, this imposed civilization, this imposed culture. And so if there's any dynamism in my writing, in my poetry, and my scholarship, it's partly about that. As Du Bois pointed out 100+ years ago, the need to answer back to those structures and strictures of oppression for the sake of my daughter, for the sake of other Black scholars and other readers who might choose to pick up a book of mine, to recognize the fact that I recognize that a struggle continues, and it's a life and death struggle, and there's a struggle about empowerment and disempowerment, and if anything I write can in any way move anybody towards the position of needing to confront the hostility that is entrenched in our society against, generally speaking, people of color, indigenous people, being able to take anything like a position of equality and even leadership in a society, then I will feel that I have accomplished a little bit of what I've set out to do as of 45 years ago.
Anna, can I ask Mr. Clarke a very short question about his poem, just that short poem?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So,
sorry, George.
The
Okay,
last line reads, I dream and flower I am. Does that mean I dream I am a flower, and actually I am a flower. Does that mean that?
Yes, it does. And it means also I'm rejecting the idea that I'm a weed. I'm
Yeah, of
rejecting
course.
the idea that I'm a weed.
Yeah, that's what by the way, I enjoy your recital and I like your poem very much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Really.
Okay, thank you very much, George. And I know, so you can choose whatever you want to do. It's up to you. So for those who still want to hang on, and I want to quickly let you know for October 3rd, we have another event. So all the 4 poets laureate will join us back again. And also for the publishing for my new book, Mirrors and Windows, also will come to join. And also we have open mic after the discussion, after the reading. We have open mic for people, for other poets. You can read in your language or you can read in your translation. So that's why we wanted to build a kind of fellowship. We kind of build the friendship and also to socialize more, like a very casual, like this kind of event. So the last event is October 3rd. It's Saturday, 3 to 4:30. So I welcome you back. Okay, say bye-bye, George.
Bye-bye,
Okay.
Anna. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
everybody.